Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Branding with Bex podcast. Today, we're talking with Dr. Sharon, a leader in nonprofit strategy, about how to build a powerful organization without burning out. In this episode, Dr. Sharon is going to share some actionable tips for scaling your mission, staying aligned with your values, and creating an impact that lasts. Dr. Sharon, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much. This is awesome. Thanks for
We're
having me.
so excited to have you. Can you start by telling the audience a little bit about you and why you decided to found the nonprofit plug?
Sure. So, my name's Dr. Sharon Elefant, just like the animal, and I'm the founder and CEO of the nonprofit Plug. It started over about 5 years ago. I've been a nonprofit consultant for almost 20 years. I know, doesn't look like it.
Absolutely.
And I was like, how can I be in the nonprofit world, get a salary, help all these nonprofits, help the community, put it all
Mhm.
together with sustainability and structure? And that's kind of how we came up with the nonprofit plug. And it was sort of like a nickname for the longest time. I was just connecting people to resources, funds, all that kind of stuff. It was called the plug for a while. My parents thought I was dealing drugs. Had to make sure that they knew that that's not what we were doing, that we were plugging nonprofits in. So that's kind of how the company started.
Mhm.
And we really were helping people do their legal paperwork. So we do formations for nonprofits in every state, all the state filings, the federal filings, get them their formation. We have a 100% success rate. And then we also help nonprofits with bookkeeping, accounting, financial management, tax filings for nonprofits, grant writing for nonprofits, workshops, leadership development, all that fun stuff. Literally anything a nonprofit could need, our firm provides that. And I just, as a former founder of a nonprofit organization, I
Mhm.
wanted a one-stop shop where I could go to, where I could get all the support that was vetted,
Yep.
accurate, legal, ethical, all in one spot. Because
Mhm.
I had experienced being in the nonprofit sector prior to this company.
Yeah, absolutely. I think something we see a lot of is people are really excited or eager to start a nonprofit or a business. Maybe they're very entrepreneurial. And taking that first step and getting started can feel so overwhelming. So, if someone is like, I want to take the first step, I want to start a nonprofit, but this looks like a lot of paperwork and a lot to do, what's a real first step that they should take? Maybe before even filing the paperwork, maybe some things they should think about. What's that first initial thought?
First thing I want people to consider if they're thinking about starting a nonprofit is there's actually another option. If you're not ready for all of that paperwork, compliance, paying for the formation, and then maintaining it every year, if you're not exactly sure what you're wanting to do. So, two things. Number one, know exactly, for the most part, what you want to do for the community.
Mhm.
Why do you want to serve the community? How do you want to serve the community? That's going to be your first question. Then, second, there's this other option called fiscal agent, also known as a fiscal sponsorship.
Okay.
That is where you can actually use, like our firm, for example, we have the Nonprofit Plug Foundation.
Mhm.
And we act as your 501(c)(3) organization. And with that, you don't have to manage a board, compliance, accounting. You use our legal nonprofit infrastructure and you're
Wow.
able to work on your project and community. Do that for about a year or two and see if this is actually something you want to turn into a business
Mhm.
and if it's something you really want to take on as the responsibility of operating a business. That's a whole
Yeah.
nother conversation.
Right, absolutely. So, following up on that, what are some mistakes that you maybe see where someone that starts a 501(c)(3) in the first year, maybe they didn't take that step that you just recommended?
Yep.
What are some mistakes that you commonly see? And then is there something where people experience maybe like burnout or maybe they fold too early because they felt overwhelmed by the process?
Yeah, I think the biggest mistake people make is that they think if you don't operate or really bring any money in the first year, you don't have compliance reporting. And
Mhm.
you absolutely do. No matter negative dollars, $0, positive dollars, you have annual compliance filings. And depending on which state you're in, it's a different requirement. And so a lot of times what people do is they'll operate thinking no money's kind of coming in and out and not do their tax filings. And then they either see a tax bill or they get revoked or terminated or suspended. Or that's one of the biggest mistakes that I
Mhm.
see all the time. The other one is they didn't fill out the paperwork properly.
Mhm.
Even with other major legal firms that you can go to that do the paperwork for you online,
Mhm.
half of our business is cleaning up the work that they do.
Wow.
Yeah, they don't do all of the filings and they don't tell people that they don't do all the filings. So they may form you in your state, but they don't do your federal application for you. It's the most mind-blowing thing I've ever
Mhm.
seen. So people are out here operating thinking they're a nonprofit and they don't even have their federal 501(c)(3) or whatever secret they may have.
Yeah, but it's hard to put a lot of trust in it when you don't know if the outcome's actually going to be what you're expecting it to be, like you mentioned.
So, especially when you bring up burnout, there's this thing called compassion fatigue. It is a real thing. So, it's kind of like the nonprofit sector's way of saying burnout.
Yeah.
And so, one of the biggest mistakes I see new nonprofit founders make within their first year is they don't take putting together a board seriously. So, your
Okay.
board of directors for your nonprofit, which is a volunteer position, these are not people that you pay,
Hmm.
they are there to help you so that you can avoid burnout and compassion fatigue. Their main role is to help you bring in dollars, in kind donations, partnerships, all these fun things into your organization.
Hmm.
No one believes me when I'm like, your first year, you need to take your board seriously and put together a board. Not your sister, not your son or daughter, not your auntie. You need to
Yeah.
put together a board, and that takes time. That can take 6 months to a year, but that's what you need to be focusing on your first
Right.
year is this board and these people that are supposed to help you. Don't put somebody on your board that wants a further resume. Kick them off.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
want that.
It's a really interesting takeaway too. I think especially for someone, if you're like very entrepreneurial minded as well, I think initially you want to do everything. You don't want to offload any
Yeah.
of your work because you're like, I could handle this. I could do this. I could do this and this. And then it starts to feel like there's a reason that you need to outsource certain positions, or even I think having a board is an interesting aspect for that, taking a step back aspect and saying, does this actually make sense to do this instead of getting really excited about projects and jumping into them ahead of time. Thinking about this as someone that is maybe they're very entrepreneurial and they know they want to start a business and they know that business, one of the goals with the business would be to give back and to donate. From your experience, do you see people coming in and maybe saying, I would love to start a business. I want to sell X, Y, and Z, and I would love to give back a portion. Do you feel like there is kind of a seesaw, like, or a balance of would you recommend an LLC for that business, or do you say maybe lean towards a nonprofit? Like, do people come in with those different mindsets? And
So the first question I always ask is when someone wants to start a nonprofit is talk to me a little bit what is it that you want to do for the community?
Mhm,
Because I want to really be able to vet, is this a nonprofit infrastructure or is this a for-profit infrastructure? Because the IRS does have guidelines on charitable purposes and so you have to be in alignment with that. You can have a nonprofit where you sell things, childcare programs, after school tutoring,
mhm,
colleges, hospitals, NFL, like these are all have C3 components to them and maybe mental health provider, they
mhm,
charge for services. Absolutely okay.
mhm.
If you're where it gets a little sketchy, and I'll give you an exact example is I had a client years ago that wanted to have a car wash, and so he
Okay,
wanted to sell car wash products. People could come in for car washes, but he wanted to have where it was like a community place where like you could come and while your car's getting washed, you could, have a coffee with a friend or create community. And
okay,
so I'm like, that's a little bit on the line of for profity that kind of has some nonprofit component, so his ended up being a for-profit infrastructure for the car wash and the products and the selling itself. But then
mhm,
he also had a nonprofit where that car wash facility ended up also being a community center where he hosted community events, gatherings, mental health support groups, and things like that. So it's really common to see people do both.
mhm.
Think of like Petco, and they have Petco
Right,
Foundation and Lowe's, Home Depot, and they have their foundations. So it's a fine line between what the IRS will be like, that's kind of for profity.
right, right. Yeah, that's interesting too. It also seems like if you have that for-profit business, that does give back. You're giving back to either another nonprofit that that you're a part of, or a community-led nonprofit. I feel like that's a big differentiator for people. It's like, are you looking to support other nonprofits out there that are already carrying out a mission, or are you more passionate about starting that mission yourself?
Right,
Which
right.
it's really interesting. So, on this podcast, I have the opportunity to talk to a lot of different entrepreneurs, business owners, founders, also people looking to grow their personal brand. The nonprofit space is one that can feel a little bit overwhelming. And I think
Confusing.
the compassion, fatigue, I think you mentioned, that's a really, really great way to say it for someone that's very, empathetic and wants to give back, but also wants to get started in this and maybe doesn't have a business background. For a lot of people, funding seems like a really big fear. If you're looking to give back, but where do I even get started? How do I find the money to do this? Do you offer any sort of sustainable revenue strategies? And But beyond looking for a grant or a donation online, like, what are some other opportunities that people have that they can say, "Okay, I'm gonna get started on this, and I feel a little bit less scared going into the funding?"
That's a really great question. So, one of my favorite revenue streams for a nonprofit organization is called program service revenue. Those are like the organizations I was telling you about, like an after school program.
Uh-huh.
Maybe it's a youth sports group, mental health services, where they actually charge for their service, which is totally okay to do in a nonprofit organization. It's awesome because it kind of helps get you a guaranteed revenue stream to sort
Right,
of kick off having some funding for your services. Just because you're a nonprofit does not mean you have to provide everything for free.
right.
So I want people to think about program service revenue for I'll use my husband as an example. I'm working with him. He has a nonprofit called Clocked In, and he
Mhm.
does a lot of boxing programs for kids and for adults, health and wellness, things like that. He's a coach.
Very
And
cool.
so one thing for him, he right now he has a grant, so he's been able to provide all of his programming for free. I'm like, but at a point, if a grant runs out or you don't get another grant, then it's okay for you to offer these youth boxing classes and charge fee for those, and you can have a sliding scale fee.
Mhm,
Maybe some families pay a little bit more, and that'll cover the cost of the family that can't afford to take the
mhm.
class. So there's a lot of creative ways around that. Program service revenues, by far my favorite way to go.
Well, that's great to know. Funding, paperwork, all of that can seem really overwhelming, but people who are very passionate about getting started, we shouldn't let these obstacles stop them. How can nonprofit leaders build that credibility and trust early on? Maybe it's just one person saying, I've been wanting to do this for so long and now I'm finally going for it. They don't have a team yet, they don't have a board yet. What are some things that people look for maybe when they're supporting a nonprofit, or how can they get that sense of trust from the community?
Transparency and a vetted nonprofit is huge,
Mhm,
especially as donors and funders are getting a lot more smart now and able to look things up about organization.
mhm,
One is really get yourself familiar with platforms like Charity Navigator and GuideStar and making sure that you have all your compliance paperwork done for your nonprofit. So if a funder or donor goes to look you up on the IRS website or GuideStar or Charity Navigator, they actually see you on there because you're actually a nonprofit organization.
mhm.
So it's important that you take compliance seriously.
Yep.
In addition to just because you're a nonprofit does not mean you're entitled to funding.
Mhm.
A lot of people start nonprofits thinking that just because they're going to get their nonprofit status, they're all of a sudden going to get a grant or a donor. It does not work like that. You have to put in the work, ask for the money, raise the
Right.
money, apply for grants, whatever. And so it is worthwhile for you as a nonprofit founder to invest in like a bookkeeper or
Mhm,
some sort of financial management services so that you have a clear understanding of revenue and expenses and can demonstrate that because ultimately in the end when you file taxes that is all public information.
mhm.
And the last thing you want to do is misappropriate or mislead your donors and your funders in your community. That'll get you blackballed instantly.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. And for someone that is maybe working with a nonprofit, they didn't start it, maybe they're a community member that has decided to volunteer their services, or whether that be marketing, sales, another aspect of the business ultimately. Do you have any advice, or is there anything that maybe you offer through the nonprofit plug that helps them after they've initially started the organization? After they're all started with the paperwork, they're really excited to get started. Now, how do they get the name out there?
Yeah, so that's one of the best parts about working with the nonprofit plug team is not only do we do your paperwork, so we get you formed in your state and with the federal level, we do compliance education, we help you get grant ready, we help you with your pitch, your messaging, your narrative, your program descriptions. We talk about what it means to have impact data. If it's not documented, you didn't do it. And we help put these infrastructures together. So these are all services that we provide to clients along the entire life of a nonprofit from birth to, some people come back to us and want to dissolve a nonprofit. It doesn't happen often, but some
Yeah.
people are like over it.
Well,
That's
that's
why fiscal sponsorship and fiscal agents is a really good option to consider for people if you're just not sure, but you want to dabble in it. Unlike a nonprofit, you can't just start, I mean, a for profit. You can't just start a for profit and then be like, oh my God, never mind. I don't want to do it. Like it
Mhm.
doesn't really work like that. Then you got fees and penalties and taxes and all that crap to pay.
Right.
In the nonprofit sector, you have that opportunity to kind of be like, "Oh, let me see if I actually like this. Can I raise the money? Do I have the ability to talk to donors and raise funds and do all that fun stuff? Do I want to invest in a firm like the nonprofit plug to help me build my infrastructure and
Right.
teach my mindset what it means to have a nonprofit, a business with a cause? It is still a business.
That's a really great point too. And for someone that maybe is thinking about it or teetering on the idea, like you said, giving yourself that year to figure it out, maybe even working for a nonprofit if you don't have the
Yes.
experience already and to actually see what it's like day in and day out. And if you are comfortable doing that outreach or finding someone that is comfortable doing that. I think with, marketing and sales, it's definitely not for everyone to go out there and talk to people about things. If you have someone that can do that for you for your nonprofit, or if you're comfortable doing that yourself, is something that you'll find out pretty early on, and this is the same
Yeah.
thing for any business, really.
Yeah.
As we talk about different nonprofit organizations, and you have a lot of experience with many of them, is there anything that really separates the nonprofits that kind of just survive and just are kind of hanging on each year, or the ones that really scale and last long term?
Yeah, so there's a major difference between the two, and it's typically the individuals that you have within the organization, the type of volunteers and the board that you have.
Hmm.
So the individuals that don't mind getting their hands dirty, don't mind going and asking for donors for money, don't mind going networking events, being in the community, providing programming, know it's going to be tough for 2 to 3 years. Those are the organizations that will thrive, survive, and be sustained. If you are an organization that is unwilling to donor cultivate,
Hmm.
unwilling to reach out to a funder, unwilling to go to networking events and meet people, you literally will your nonprofit's not gonna go anywhere unless you find someone who you're probably gonna have to pay to do that on your
Right.
behalf.
Right. Like that marketing and that sales piece, I think is really important, especially for any business and as a whole, but just being able to do that active outreach. And yeah, that's a really great point. I
And I
think,
get it, like, I get it.
yeah,
People are uncomfortable, like, a solid introvert,
yeah,
but if this is the business that you wanna be in, and this is the business that you wanna operate, put on your big girl panties and get some balls, and this is what you gotta do.
yeah, yeah, you got to get out there or find someone that is willing to do the work for you. And
Probably gonna have to pay, and you have to know you're probably gonna have to pay for that.
yeah, of course. Yeah, yeah. That part of the business is not coming free. Well, if someone's interested in maybe getting started and launching their own nonprofit today and they want to take a look at the services that you have to offer, how could someone go ahead and get started with that? Is there anything that you offer in terms of a consultation or where they can find some more information about you and your business?
Absolutely. So we offer free discovery calls for every single service. So best way is to go to our website, www.thenonprofitplug.com, and book a call with us. In the top right corner is a big link, book a call. Follow us on Instagram. We post tons of cool tips, tricks, techniques,
Awesome.
grant opportunities, encouragement posts. Our Instagram is at the nonprofit plug. We've got a YouTube channel that is
Okay.
full of trainings that you can watch. Each of them are about an hour long, where we
Awesome.
actually teach you how to do some of this work all free. So you can go our YouTube's at the nonprofit plug. And then we also have a platform on school. We have the Nonprofit Plug University, and that right now it's free. That'll be changing probably in the next couple of months. But I encourage people to join the Nonprofit Plug University on school. And we also post weekly grants, tips and tricks. We'll probably have office hours on there. They can reach out to any of our staff on there and ask questions. They can post on the main community page. A lot of opportunity that's free to get people like thinking about this, and are you ready, and did you think about this, and watch this video. If this video resonates with you, then go give it a try and go raise some funds and then come back to us. But you can always book a call with us, free discovery call, and we'll talk through whatever it is that you need to deal with and find a solution for you anyway.
Awesome. Well, that sounds great. Thank you so much for sharing all that info. I'll be sure to add those links too in the show notes in case anybody wants to go check them out. I think this is just an awesome opportunity if you're even considering launching a nonprofit or if you're just, curious about what it would take. I think diving into those resources that you mentioned is the perfect place to start. And if you're, a little bit more further along in your journey, booking one of those free consult calls would be perfect just so they can get a better understanding of like if this is for them or if it's a nonprofit or a for-profit business. It seems like you guys do a great job of outlining that for everyone too. Thank you so much for hopping on this podcast with me. I really appreciate your time and I'm really looking forward to sharing this with everybody. I think they're going to really enjoy it.
Thank you so much. Great talking with you too.